So in this episode, I sit down with my friend and fellow church elder, Bryce Bays. We talk about our wives and our relationships with them. We talk about raising kids, raising cows, fixing elevators, and all sorts of things in between. Welcome to Burnham Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Burnham. There it is. That means that we're live. Yep. And we're rolling. Does it feel weird now? Don't feel any different than it did? I told you. Okay. Well, just a lie. I'm glad you're calling. You know what else you've done really well? This is Bryce Bays, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. The catechism. You've done like super well with that. It hasn't been. Have you ever been spoken in front of a room before?
I did some college, public speaking.
Okay.
Hated every minute of it.
Oh yeah.
But no.
Never before. Okay.
Not generally.
So, I should back up just a little bit now. Bryce is an elder at Rome Reformed Church, which is the church where I'm the pastor, the church where we are right now here in Sanctuary with this cool backdrop. This is not a Google background, by the way. Every time I'm in a Zoom meeting, everybody's like, is that a Google? No, man, these are real bricks. It's my wall. Bryce is an elder with us. He does our catechism questions every Sunday, picks out psalms for us to sing. Lots of heavy theological responsibilities, right? That's good stuff. But no, as far as being in front of the room, like you were worried about it. The first time we were talking about it, you were like, oh, I don't know if I could get up. And you just nail it every Sunday.
Well, last time I didn't wear hearing aids, so that helped. I can actually tell when I'm here wearing them, it just sounds like I'm inside myself and it's very loud. So I can't tell.
So it's worse for you to talk with them in.
Right.
Okay.
Because I hear it very loud.
Okay.
So
you hear yourself very loud too.
Yeah.
I got you.
But yeah, it's just a learning curve. I've had them for a year, but I'm still figuring out.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. It's a necessary evil, I guess, because it's nice to be able to hear, except for when you're talking and the sound is echoing off the inside of your skull.
Mm-hmm.
But so when you're not the elder of a church, well, when you always are the elder of a church, but when you're not being the elder in a church, you don't have to say the name of your company or anything. But what do you do?
So technically I'm a helper.
Okay.
I'm a helper for an elevator mechanic. So I'm in the elevator industry.
I got you.
TK Elevators.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is not a sponsor of this show. I try not to say brands and companies. It's all right. It's cool. I asked and you told me.
Yeah.
How long you been doing that?
I just started in November, so I get insurance at 6-month mark. Can't wait.
So it's almost the 1st of May.
Yep.
You're right there knocking on the door, right? Yep. And I should have told you before we got started. I'll probably ask you ask you questions that we've already talked about before, but for the sake of our millions and millions or dozens and dozens of listeners, we may hash over a few things again. So as a believer, this is where it always comes back to on the episode. You're an elevator repair guy. Mm-hmm. Call yourself a helper, but you're an elevator repair guy. How's your walk with Christ overlap with your everyday job?
So, like daily, I talk to mechanics who some claim they're Christian, some don't. But the mechanic I work with the most, I've already noticed, he'll go and say, "Oh, darn it," or try to use different language a little bit here and there. So it does seem like I have a little bit of influence already.
All right.
But I'm just constantly on the guard of how I talk and how I present myself, because it is more of a wild crew than what I'm used to.
Yeah. So you're out and about now, right? I mean, you're working in a different place all the time?
No, I work at one building, Circle 75.
Okay.
So right where 285 and 75 meet on the north side.
Okay. I didn't realize. I thought you just would have to go wherever the repair was needed.
Yeah, if my mechanic's on vacation, then I'll go somewhere else. But it's always going to be in Atlanta, roughly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool.
Yeah.
So when you're not being an elevator repair guy, what are you into?
Anything and everything. Guns. I still play games. Like,
Yeah.
I like playing games with the kids.
Yeah,
Video
yeah.
games. But shoot, we just played. Have you heard of Machi Koro? That's a board game.
I have not, but now I feel like I should have.
Yeah, it's fun. My son and I played that last night and had a ball.
Machi Koro.
Yeah.
What's the premise?
You're just building. You're just flipping cards and buying cards with their currency.
Okay.
And as you roll the dice, the cards will help you gain coins or hinder you, depending on what cards your opponent has.
So it's like Monopoly in life.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, because you got to roll and buy these buildings and stuff. But it's,
all right.
It's pretty fun. It's simple, but it's fun.
So we're teaching fiscal responsibility to the kids, right?
That's right.
Like we're hiding it, as disguising it as a game, which I guess is what we do a lot of times as homeschool parents anyway, right? You guys homeschool your crew.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always looking for that little thing that like they're learning, but we kind of disguise it as playing in the woods or tending the critters or whatever. You guys have a farm, right? So you have your little farm where you do your farm stuff, and you have how many kids?
6.
Six kids, 6 farm hands, right? 12 farm hands.
Well, we got one who doesn't like animals too much, but she's good in the garden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it all balances out, right?
Yeah.
But so you guys, what was behind your decision to homeschool? You guys both went to public school.
We just about decided on that pretty early after having children. We were both public schooled, and the government.
It's okay. I used to do it, man. I get it.
Right. So there's many things we disagree about with our government, and specifically the way they're running schools,
right?
And just the fact that you get to raise your children. I less so than Madeline, but
somebody's got to pay the bills, man.
Right. Yeah, if I could find a way to work at home, I tried.
Yeah,
I'd do it. And see them more. But I still I'm home. Besides about 50 hours a week.
Yeah. Well, now you're 4 days a week at your regular job, right?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. So I call it 50 hours just because travel and all that. But
right.
Most of the time they're sleeping. I mean, I get there at 5. So.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't miss most of their day, I guess, because they're probably up a little later. But.
Home around 4 or so. So it works out.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, but it never even crossed your minds to send your kids to school?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it when we had kids,
right.
But realized that we were not going to do that pretty quickly.
Yeah. So let me ask you, because people ask me all the time, and I know what I tell them, but what do you tell people who say, we can't do that, or, it's not for whatever?
I hear that all the time. Really, I mean, you're going to find an excuse to
just said the word right up front, right?
Hey, I'll be blunt to them.
Yeah.
Just like I've got family who they would like to homeschool, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it is a lot of work.
Yeah,
and it is convenient to be able to send your children off. So,
that's what I always tell people, that we couldn't until we could. We found excuses.
Right.
Well, I don't even say reasons, but. Well, we can't do it because of this or because of that or money or jobs or whatever. And my wife and I both have different jobs now than we had before we started homeschooling our kids, because we wanted to homeschool our kids. Mm-hmm. So, Jocko Willink, one of my favorite people to listen to, says excuses are lies. And as it turns out, he's right. And people don't like hearing that, and they get upset when you call them liars. Well, it's not. You're not lying to me. You're lying to yourself when you start making excuses. But so what's the question? The question that people always ask you about homeschooling your kids. You know the one I'm talking about?
Are they weirdos?
Yeah. How are you going to socialize them kids? What's your answer for that?
Well, first off, they got plenty of socialization at home.
Right. You guys got 11 kids over there.
But we also do a co-op, so that every Tuesday they go out and do school, or Madeline is a tutor there too. So, but also, I mean, we go out and it's hard to get them to not talk. So they are
I
socializing.
love your kids, man.
Yeah.
I love them. So, yeah, you live life with your kids, right? That's what I always tell them. They say, "Well, how do you socialize your kids?" And I go, I don't know, man. I have to get back to you after we get back from jiu-jitsu and chorus and co-op and when I pick my daughter up from work. She's 15. She's got 2 jobs because she's wild.
Goodness.
So when we sort all that out, I don't know. We'll squeeze in some socialization somewhere, and I don't know. That's always the cheesiest question. Well, your kids are gonna be weird. Well, like our kids are gonna be different. But when you're around a bunch of homeschool kids, you get kids that look you in the eye and shake your hand and say yes, sir, and
there's a maturity there that you just don't see in public school.
Well, even the best, I mean, I worked with some great ones, and I like to think I was okay at it. Great teachers. And they poured their heart and souls into their jobs, but at the end of the day, it's them versus 150 kids. And they don't have time to say, okay, little Johnny, you're supposed to say, yes, ma'am, when I do a favor or ask you a question, or whatever. And thank you and please. And that's us. It's on us. So whether we send our kids to school or not, that's still on us.
Yeah. I had some impressionable teachers I think in like first grade. I got my desk dumped out on the floor in front of everybody.
Oh, okay.
Because I wouldn't turn in homework. I just, it was one of those desks that had a big old pocket. You could throw everything in there. It was very unorganized.
Yeah.
And that one moment there just changed everything. I was, from then on, became very organized, turned my work in. So I do believe, there's a lot of good eggs in public teaching.
There is, man, but it's such a big workload.
Yeah. And trying to go against other people's children is the main thing. Having our children is fine.
Right.
But you try to teach other children. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things. And I guess you're not an old guy, but I guess you were right on that tail end of the generation of teachers that would dump your desk out on the floor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm 30, but I had some firecrackers.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. But that's what it takes. When they talk about it taking a village to raise your kids, like, those are the people they're talking about. Like, don't just let any old villager impress upon your kids and, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But it's cool that you guys do that. What co-op are you guys part of?
Oh, man. It is Classical Conversation.
Oh, that's what we do. Yeah. Have we not talked about this before?
We might have.
I'm sure Madeline and Jessica have at some point.
Yeah.
But, I didn't realize you guys did CC2.
We've done it, I think it's like 4 or 5 years. Maybe 4.
Okay. We just finished are finishing our second year.
Okay.
So we did some other stuff before that, but we didn't know what we were doing and didn't take much time to research it. We just saw a window to get our kids out of school, so we did.
There you go.
But, you do what's best. And then, man, Classical Conversations is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we like it. And Madeline just started tutoring for it, too, so that'll be a little cheaper for us.
There you go. That's what it's all about. Right? Get that discount. But, man, especially, how many guys do you have?
So 4 on tuition or whatever you call it. Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, yeah.
So your kids range from 11 to, I'm going to do this, a year and 3 months.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes. So you got one that's she's a couple years younger than our youngest. Mm-hmm. You guys are all across the board.
Oh, yeah. But, well, no, I mean, if you look at it, it's every 2 years, just about.
Was that the plan?
No, the plan when we were dating, we were agreed, 3 kids would be nice. And we kept that. And when we got married, we was like, 3 kids would be good. Then we had 3 kids. We're like, okay, this is cool. 4 kids, let's do 4. Because I'm one of 4.
Right. I'm one of 4.
Okay. And we thought that'd be too cool. And then we were done. We're like, all right, this is a lot. We were like, okay.
Workload grows exponentially at that point.
Big time. And so like just a few months after our 4th, we're like, all right, this is it. So I went and got a vasectomy, said, no more. It's too much. We're tired.
I'm doing the math on this now.
Right.
You had 4.
Yep.
You have 6, and there was a vasectomy in between.
Yeah. So about 2 years later, I thought, wow, I shouldn't have done that. And so we booked a vasectomy reversal. A guy up in, he roams a couple of states, but I think we had to go to Boston.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But he does it as his ministry, so it's low cost reversals.
Okay.
and booked it, and he was like a year out, and just kind of a bummer. It's gonna take so long, but we're like, okay, well, we will be patient for this,
right?
And then all of a sudden, like he had an opening, and just bam, got it done.
Okay,
and it's just been I'm very fortunate at work because it was extremely painful. And my advice now is to just pray and be patient.
There you go. Oh man, well that's cool, man. So 6 kids. I can't I don't know. We would have 5, so we'd be right there with you. Yeah, no, we wouldn't. I still 6 though, man. That's 3 to 1.
Oh yeah,
that's a bunch of them.
Yeah, it's a lot of diapers.
Yeah, I remember, and Tango, you remember Mark Summers, who's our pastor at Cassville, and I don't know how many kids they got now, man, but I asked Mark one time, I think they had 6 or 7 at the time. Maybe he's got 8 or 9 now.
It's like a baseball team.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
He's got a bunch of them, but I was like, hey, Mark, what's the deal, man? Well, I mean, do your thing, whatever. It's your family. You got to feed all those kids. But why do you have so many kids? And he was just straight up. He was like, well, there are other religions that average 7 or 8 kids per household. And he didn't say, I forget what the word was. He didn't say outbreeding, but they were outpopulating us.
Yeah.
And spreading their religion by just having more kids. And I was like, holy smokes. And then I was waiting on the punchline, right? I thought he was kind of joking with me. Like, Mark was serious. You remember him talking about this stuff?
Oh, yeah. It was wild. It's 7, by the way. It's
7? Is that
7.
Yeah. Well, he had...
Is what it looks like.
A couple of nephews or something that lived with him at one point too. But
Yep.
Yeah. So but that's what he told me. He was like, man, these other families and these other religions have 6 and 8 and 9 kids. And I was like, okay. Well, God bless you. You have your 12 kids or whatever you want to have. But that's a ministry in and of itself, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a full-time job.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I talked to you about when, I don't know, it must have been your second or third time to come to church. And I was like, hey, what do you think about being an elder? Because there weren't any at the time, right? It was just me. And you were like, well, I don't know. So you teach your kids at home, right? And you were like, yeah. I was like, well, you're able to teach. And you got all the other stuff that they talk about in 1 Timothy. You're good to go. So, so you're qualified, right? I mean, because you got your own schoolhouse there and your own congregation. But it's good stuff, man. It's if you can do that, I mean, you can stand up in front of a group of adults, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It's not
Which
too
one
bad.
do you think is harder?
Well, trying to get the kids to pay attention is a task in itself. So I'm doing that. I don't really have to do that up there. Madeline's pretty good handle.
Well, you get up pretty early in the service.
Yeah.
30, 45 minutes into the service, I look out and there's people, some of you turkeys are asleep out there.
I know. Some of my turkeys.
Yeah. Well, some of these adults too. God bless them. I won't say anybody's name. Our church is little, man. If they listen, they're going to know who I'm talking about. So stay awake in church so I don't talk about you on the podcast. But that's cool. So what kind of farm do you guys got?
We're on about 5 acres. So I fenced in about 1.5 acres, and we just run everything we can out there. We were
talking about this just off air, right?
Yeah, we've had goats. Just got rid of a couple cows, but we've got one big, we call her Mama. She just had a calf. So we're getting somewhere between 1 gallon to 2 gallons of milk from her every morning, which is awesome. And all the cows were stepping on the chickens. So it was bad.
They don't survive that too many times.
They will limp around and eventually start walking fine, depending on how bad it is.
Right.
But so finally, I put them all up, put all the chickens in their own little pen, and they're all better. And we're getting, I don't know, something like 20 eggs a day. So
yeah, I mean, you need them though, right?
Right. Yeah, we're running through that many. So, and I'm trying to eat around 180 to 175 grams of protein. Okay. And that's an easy way to do it since they're, it's free.
Man, yeah. So I don't know. Would you recommend that lifestyle to other people? I mean, I know it's a lot of work.
Yeah. So there's chores every day.
Yeah.
I mean, we love it. So
yeah,
I would definitely recommend it. It's just as long as it's something you can commit to and not neglect animals.
Right. Yeah, that'd be the tough part. It was just making. I mean, because I'm sure that there are things to do when you get home from work and you just don't feel like going out there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you're gonna live that lifestyle, I guess I'm hearing you talk about this stuff, and we got like 25 now chickens. We got 5 that are adults and they're layers or whatever, but we got 18 like teenage-ish chickens that are on their way.
But at least they're past the the tough early age.
They're not like in the laundry room anymore under the heat lamp or anything. They're outside, but it's cool. So you were talking about just personal curiosity. You're getting 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons a day of milk from the cow. Mm-hmm. How much does the calf need?
So this actually works out real well. It's called calf sharing. So we'll put her up at night, the calf, and let mama roam around. And then in the morning we'll come and milk her. And so she's just full as could be. And then we'll let the calf out in the morning. And then she'll just go at it.
Just milk all day long?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they graze around, roam around and such. But, oh, yeah, she goes and drinks a lot.
So you guys drinking raw milk at your house?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
See, so they've been lying to us about raw milk.
Yes, and that's another part I disagree with the government and how. I mean, you just saw I think they passed some legislation where I think next year maybe we'll be allowed to purchase raw milk in grocery stores. But so I think initially it was to be better for the consumer and to not get sick and whatnot. But raw milk's good for you.
Man, we bought some. You have to buy it under the guise of feeding it to your pets, right?
Nowadays,
I drank like 1/2 gallon of it. It was pretty good.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, that really is. It was just better all the way around. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I have to feel like that lifestyle, and I don't think it's a sin to not live that lifestyle. But I think that lifestyle where you're at least somewhat self-sufficient. You got a couple of chickens and you're eating eggs, or you got a cow or whatever you got. I kind of feel like I don't know. It's a more of a. I'm trying to be careful with my words here. It's not. I don't know. You're going back to like biblical times almost, and you're living like the people that you're reading about in the Bible.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did. They didn't have grocery stores and meat packing plants and. And you got thoughts on it. I can see.
Yeah, I can agree with you to an extent, but I still think we're still too, I don't know, deep into like technology and, and distractions and it would be ideal to go back to those times. I always tell Madeline I'd like to see what like the 1800s would be, to like before electricity and such.
Yeah,
I think that'd be fantastic.
Well, like people didn't. I guess some people had jobs. Like jobs they did, but like you did whatever you did at home, or if you helped people build houses or whatever, you had to go there and do that. But like everybody had to feed themselves, mm-hmm. So you had your garden and you had your livestock and you had your home place. I guess the problem now is that you got to buy the land, and it's tough without a bunch of land and a gajillion cows. It's tough to pay the rent if you don't also have some kind of job,
right? And pay taxes. Because they're going to tax you and tax you and tax you.
Yeah. Bless their hearts.
Well,
that was, we just did a bunch of that with the church. We just got through the process of finalizing our nonprofit status and all that stuff. And that was kind of a back and forth because we're like, we don't want the government involved in the church, but we really don't want them involved in our bank account. Mm-hmm. So we weren't going to be able to save money as a business without being taxed. So this is the workaround, the way around that. But I don't know. You take it where you can get it, I guess.
Right. And I mean, we try to do, I think there's like a homestead exemption or ag exemption.
Yeah. If
there's going to be a tax break, I'll go for it.
Absolutely.
I'll pay my taxes too.
Yeah.
And attempt to do so joyfully.
It's tough, right?
Yeah. But yeah, if there's an exemption, I'm going to go for it.
100%. All day, every day. Yeah, absolutely. So you guys, you have your farm, you do your thing. I want to gas you up a little bit, and I don't disagree with me or shake your head. And you guys are pretty stout, staunch believers. You're you're living the life. Like, it's not just a thing that you do on Sundays and you teach your kids and you're showing them the way, and you and Madeline have this marriage that's based on biblical principles, and that's good stuff, because you guys are still in that age gap, right, between the 18. I guess you just crossed over into 30 though.
Mm-hmm.
So you're on the tail end of that, but where people leave church and then they never come back, or they don't come back until they're 30.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are doing it right, man.
Well, honestly, we were built on a not zero foundation, but on a very sandy foundation.
Yeah.
When we got married at 18, I did not lead our family and take us to church like I should have.
Yeah.
That took a few years. And the odd thing is, I would go to church. Our parents would just when I was a kid, our parents would just drop us off and we'd go to church, and they come and pick us up after they ate breakfast or something. And eventually we got to where my brother was driving and he would take us to church. My parents would just stay home. So, I was led there for a while as a kid, and saw a good example, and then just kind of let that fall to the wayside. But, God has done a work in our lives, very obvious.
Yeah.
Because we have a solid foundation now. And
so what was the turning point?
Somehow, I guess we talked to some friends who were like, "Hey, come to our church. It's got a bunch of young people." That was one of our things. We went to the church that I went to when I moved up here to Carsville. Not here, but to Carsville. And they had a young married couples thing.
Okay.
And we were 20 and everybody else was like 30, 35.
That's the most awkward thing ever, right?
Right. So we were like, this is a young married. So that kind of like threw us off there. And then someone invited us to a church. We went there, loved it. They preached verse by verse, and we enjoyed that a lot.
It's like a fantastic pastor, right? Somebody preaches verse by verse.
So, but I mean, we did leave there. And we grew a lot there.
Yeah.
And then obviously came here.
So, but it amounted to somebody inviting you to church.
Yeah.
Wow. So you went to church because somebody invited you after not having been in church.
Right.
Man, it's funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys both knew that you were supposed to be in church.
Right. I mean, we would go to Cassville occasionally.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I forget the Methodist church that just split up over there in Carsville.
Yeah.
Can't remember the name now, but
I don't know. It's sadly one of the hardest things to do is to walk into a church cold, right?
Right.
Like I've never been in there before. Maybe don't know anybody. We picked this church because it's 3 blocks from the house, or whatever. But yeah, it's a tough thing to do.
mm-hmm.
And we joke about it in here a lot on Sundays about whose seat is where. And because, it happened to me once that I walked into a church. I went for, it was like a special service. I don't know if it was a revival or a singing or what, but I sat down in this seat. And this is like a Tuesday night. Like this wasn't even a Sunday morning, but this lady walks up and she's like, "Hey, you're in my seat." And I said, "I'm in your seat." And she's like, "Yeah, I've been sitting there for 30 years. And I was like, "Oh, well then by all means." And I got up and left. Now I was 19 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would have just moved down a couple seats, but I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody who didn't know better would have gotten up and left too. But to get in the door is tough. And it's a big deal when somebody invites you, right? Because you invite me to church and I know somebody there because you've invited me. Man, I hope people from our church are listening to this and they're all going to invite somebody to church on Sunday. Or whenever you listen to this, that Sunday too. This is the time thing on the podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is how it works. Because somebody will listen to this in 10 years, and it won't be April the 25th of 2023 then, but there will still be a Sunday coming then. So invite people to church then. Anyway, I don't know. That's the hump that a lot of people have to get over. I don't know anybody there, and my kids, and this and that. There's a church in Cartersville, and I ran into the pastor the other day. They used to meet in a bar on Tennessee Street. James, the pastor's name is James. Cross Point, Life Point, something or other. You got it? Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, I saw your phone going over there like you were about to pull it up. We visited their church when we were going to Cassville. We just decided, because we still, up until the time I started pastoring, we would just visit another church on occasion. So we go to this church, parking lot's across the street, and a dude comes running out. And I think I told this story on the last episode too. The dude comes running out in the street and is like dodging cars like Frogger to come over and welcome us to church and get our kids in the nursery and take us to the coffee bar and all this stuff. And so like we didn't know anybody there, but we knew that guy. So like a lot of times it's putting somebody out front to shake hands and greet people and stuff like that. We don't do that. We got to start doing that, even as small church as we are.
Yeah, I mean, when I see someone, I'll shake their hand and say, "Hey, I'm Bryce," and
I feel like everybody that visits our church gets a pretty solid welcome.
Yeah, I forgot who you had on a while back, but yeah, I don't try to rush anyone and try to run across the street or anything like that.
Write down your contact information. Yeah.
So just ease them in.
Yeah. But I do. I feel like, and I worry about it sometimes. I feel like people get a really good welcome at our church because there's so few of us and it's such a big deal when somebody comes in. But I don't want it to be like overwhelming either. So I don't know. But I think there's a thin line. But I think it'd be better to be overwhelming than to be absolute cold shoulder.
That's my seat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So you got back into church, and you, I don't want to call it bounced around a little bit, but you went to church a couple different places until you founded what you felt like was a good fit. And I guess that was Rome Reformed Church.
Oh yeah.
So what, you live in Cartersville, which I don't know, it takes you guys 30 minutes to get here.
Yeah.
How many churches do you drive past to get here?
Probably 100.
Yeah, right, at least. I was thinking, I counted one time from my house. We live 3 miles from the church, and we drive past like 11 churches. Yeah. So why do you drive past 29 churches to come to Rome Reform?
Well, we haven't visited all of them, so
okay.
I can't knock them yet.
Right. Well, not to knock them.
Right. I can't, say I wouldn't go there. But no, I enjoy our, we sing psalms. We're not trying to sing music from Bethel or Hillsong or anything like that. So
it's a different podcast episode.
Yeah. And then, keeping it simple by going through Bible one book at a time, one verse at a time.
Yeah.
Which is what you're doing right now. We've had, Drew preach too.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know. Oh, and to not have all the children aren't just, shoot away to another service.
Yeah.
They are encouraged to stay with us.
Yeah. And that becomes, it's not a problem. It's never a problem. When I hear a kid making noise in the service, like, I don't care at all. Because when I'm dead and gone, he'll be the church. Mm-hmm. Who's that? Your little ones, my little ones, somebody else's. Like, that's a big deal. It's important to us to have all the kids in there. And it gets kind of hectic sometimes, especially right at the beginning and then right at the end when we're just getting started and everybody's got to sit down now and be quiet. And then we do communion every Sunday, and that, it's kind of I don't know. For kids, it's a little bit tough to sit through because we got the wine and the bread, and we got to sit still while we pass it out. But it is important. It's always been important to me to have your kids in service with you. Mm-hmm. And for us, where we are right now, we have one room because we're a small church, and it's not like we have the option of a nursery anyway.
Right.
But it's a blessing to me to hear you say that, because I'm sure there are people that would come to our church and would go, well, yeah, I mean, because you don't have a nursery, they can sit with us and whatever. But I don't want, somebody's going to take this the wrong way, but the church is, we talked about this a little bit with school earlier, the church is secondary as far as raising the kids go. All that stuff starts at home. Mm-hmm. And the church is part of that. You bring them to church, you show them the way, you sit with mom and dad in church and listen to the message and, all that stuff. But it's part of what we do. It's important. It's an important part. We structure our whole week around all that good stuff. But the family is your first church.
Right. Make sure they're hearing God's word.
Yeah.
Not only just at church.
Hey, there you go. That's tough though, man, because I got a job and we got some hobbies and and I'm not the greatest at that even as a pastor, but we have to. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's fine. I'm sure there's an ideal time you can work out, whether it's distracted them while they're, not distracting, while they're eating. You
got them
talk
nailed
to
down then, right?
Or, well, we just do it every night, and they've just grown accustomed to, it's time to sit on the couch, read the Bible,
Yeah.
then we'll pray. And then they're able to go off and either do their own thing or go to bed, depending on big age range there.
Right. That's good stuff, though. That's a priority. I mean, it's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
But
and being consistent. I mean, obviously it's a priority, but just doing it every single night.
Yeah.
They grow to expect it and enjoy it.
Well, that's the key, right? Is it you make it routine, then they grow to expect it, and they go, well, yeah. And if you're not right there at 7:30 or whatever your time is, they go, hey, it's 7:30. Like,
right.
let's get this going.
Yeah.
But kind of like Sunday morning when it's 10:29 and some people are, like, hey, it's about that time. Let's get this going. But no, I was super glad to have you guys first time you came to church. We started out with 3 families.
Mm-hmm.
You were our 4th family. And then we've added another since then, and we've had a revolving door of other guests, and that's cool. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's just part of it. But you guys have been you've been there, since the first time you walked in the door. It's never been like, well, we're going to try it out, and then we're going to go to 50 other churches, and then we'll get back to you and let you know. But so, I mean, that's what got you here, and that's what keeps you coming.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we're encouraged, extremely encouraged, hearing your story and how you guys were like, well, these churches aren't going to meet, we'll meet. Yeah. And that's the way the church we were going to, they for a few Sundays there, well, probably a month. Yeah. They said, no, you guys can log in through this portal or whatever. And we did it, and it was just, I don't know why. I should have, I don't know. I guess I allowed myself to buy into some of it for a while.
Yeah. Oh, we all did.
Yeah. So, it'd be hindsight's 2020, but
right. So was 2020. But yeah, I think we all learned from it. And Tango, me and you were talking about this beforehand. We don't live stream, and I don't think I ever want to live stream, because you start live streaming and people are like, "Well, that's church. Mm-hmm. I can just stay home," and it's not the same. And it's not Hebrews 10:25 that tells us to gather together. And you can look at the number on Facebook and be like, "Yeah, there's 11 of us on there right now, and you're not gathering together."
Yeah, good luck taking communion.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let me pass that to you. We'll upload your wine and cookie. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was a big deal for us to have somewhere to meet. And I sort of inherited this thing from another person. It wasn't our church gathering then, and it wasn't for, we started meeting in April or May, and then we met through like August, and people's churches started opening back up. And then we weren't Rome Reformed Church until the next April. So 2 years ago, just a couple of weeks ago, matter of fact. But yeah, it just wasn't an option to not meet and to not gather. And they cut people's heads off in parts of the world for gathering together as a church. Like, the least we could do was risk getting the China flu.
Right. Yeah, there's no government, arresting people here. Yeah. For us, but I mean, yeah, we just chose to let fear win.
Yeah, we did. And like I said, all of us did for a little while, because it was, I don't know, churches started closing in March, I guess, and then it was middle of April or maybe a little after before we started meeting. Mm-hmm. But there just wasn't a plan. And churches just closed one day. And we're like, well, shoot, what do we do? But we did talk about recording the occasional service and posting it. Just, I don't know, what do you think? We'll talk about it on air. We don't live stream because we want people to come to church. What do you think about recording and just posting the occasional service just so people can see what it's about?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I listen to sermons, in general anyway, whether it's through a podcast or YouTube or whatever else.
I got you.
Yeah.
I just feel like we're called Rome Reformed Church, and there are Reformed churches, but there aren't very many churches that call themselves Reformed.
Right.
And I think a lot of people kind of get hung up on the word. What does that mean? And what does it really look like to sing the Psalms? Because I had never done it before we started gathering, during our little temporary COVID church. I'd never sang the Psalms in church before.
Right.
And I was like, man, why would you do this some other way? Once I heard that's God's word, and we're just singing it back to him. But so Bryce is in. That's 2 of us. Out of the 3 we voted now, we're going to record.
All right, then.
Call this meeting to order. Anyway, so no, but like I said, we're glad to have you guys and for you to be part of the plurality of elders and Madeline, with the kids and, and it's awesome, man. You guys are just great. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about, like that you wanted to bring up on the show? I'm running out of stuff to ask.
I guess I should ask how did your relationship with your wife start on building that foundation, and how did that go?
We were a little different than y'all. You guys started dating, got married when you were 18.
Right.
I was 33.
Okay.
So at that point, I had been in ministry already. Me and Jessica knew each other way back. She's 6 years younger than me. And we met about the time she was 16 and I was 22. Mm-hmm. We had some mutual friends and I was working in like youth ministry at the time, just super weird to think about now. But we were around a lot of the same events because she was in youth and I was working in youth. So I knew her, I knew who she was. And then 10 years later, she messaged me on Facebook and she's like, hey, I see you post a lot of scripture and things like that on your Facebook. Where are you going to church these days? And I told her. And then the next Sunday she came to church. And then we started dating 2 weeks after that. Now here's the funny side of that story. I was sitting around a table. Jessica and I started dating. We called it official on my birthday, September 9th, right? Her birthday is August 23rd, and we hung out a couple of times in between those days. But right around her birthday, I was sitting around with a group of friends who were about my age. We were all like late 20s, early 30s. We're all single. None of us ever been married. And we were talking to somebody. It was a pity party is what it amounted to. And somebody's like, we're all going to have to marry these people that have been divorced and have kids and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, I beat my fist on the table. And I was like, no, there are a bunch of us in this room. That means there are others out there. We're not going to have to do that. It's not going to happen. So then Jessica sends me this message on Facebook about the same time. She had a 3-year-old she hadn't been married before, but she had a 3-year-old from her previous relationship. And then there I was dating somebody who just a few days before I swore would never happen. But so she started coming to church with me and brought Ayla with her, and we just never looked back. Yeah. I became a deacon at church not long after that, which we functioned as elders, whatever. But I had been involved in youth ministry and other teaching Sunday school and stuff for, 5 or 6 years at that point. So like I had kind of figured that stuff out. I say figured it out. God had finished me, so to speak, at that point. So she kind of got a grown up rather than having to make me grow up, but she still does. And 10 years later, 11 years later, we just celebrated 11 years.
Wow.
But so she's beating all the bad habits out of me now. What was left? But yeah, I was involved in all that stuff already at that point. So that was kind of our story as far as how we got going. Now, if you had asked her then, she probably never would have said, yeah, I'll probably be a pastor's wife one day. But yeah, we inherited, or I inherited a Sunday school class at one point, not long after we got married, from my mentor, Seth Arnold. You remember Seth?
Yeah.
I still see Seth sometimes. Matter of fact, I'm going to see him, I think, next week. So she's always been around that, and she didn't know she was getting ready to be a pastor's wife this whole time. But Mark Summers told me I'd be a pastor too after probably about the same time he was explaining why he's got 11 kids. But yeah, he was like, oh, you can do it. It's easy. I remember him saying that. Now I hear those words in my head all the time when things happen. You can do it. It's easy. Okay, Mark, sign me up. But yeah, here we are. So she's a pastor's wife now, and I'm a pastor, and it's not. Here's what I thought. I thought, yeah, this will be an easy first pastorate, right? Because it's just a few people. There's no such thing as an easy, because people are still people, right? And we still deal with with human issues, and there's still bad times. And, you know, and I think back, like, we started having church in April of 21, and then we lost our son in June.
All right.
You know, so we had been a church for no time at all. Like, some of us didn't know each other, even as small of a church as we were. And so then we, as a church, had to figure out how to navigate that. And we missed a couple of Sundays in there, and they just got together and studied the Bible in place of a regular service for those couple of weeks. But I think it made us stronger. Obviously, you know, we wish things hadn't gone that way, but as a church, we came together kind of around that, and it strengthened us, and it, you know, it's kind of made us who we are, and God still blesses us. Mm-hmm. And I like to think that my faith has been strengthened, and that we're more faithful now than we were before, even as hard as that was.
Right.
But but here we are 2 years later. God's still good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
And in the new building.
Yeah. We've been here since January, and it's almost the end of April now.
Still making rent.
Still making rent. Here's the best part, right? And I'll say this on the air, and if people at church listen, then they'll know. Otherwise, I had to tell them pretty soon. We've got budgeted, like, we're good on our budget for like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So as long as the intake keeps balancing the outgoing, we're good here for 2 years, even as small of a church as we are. With that said, we need more churches. You know, somebody asked me when we were starting this church, they said, does Rome, Georgia really need another church? We had a bunch of them, right? There's churches everywhere. So I say to this guy, where do you go to church? And he was like, well, I don't go to church. I said, Rome, Georgia needs more churches. So don't just go out and start one because you think you can, because I would directly advise against that. But, you know, form a committee, get some people together and talk about the idea, have some meetings in your house. We skipped over all that.
Yeah.
We didn't do the house meeting because we had already kind of had a background, and we just jumped right into the hotel meeting room. But where are we at on time, Tango?
47 minutes.
Really? Okay, cool. How much time you got?
Till the kids go to bed.
Okay.
Around 8 or so.
I got you.
But,
So the cows come home.
yeah, right.
Right?
Well, that's true. I got to do some chores before dark.
I got you. Well, we'll let you run then. You got chores to do. We've been here longer than I thought, though. I figured 20, 25 minutes.
You know, when you get talking, you go.
I guess. I'm usually pretty good with the time, though, and that's why I don't have my phone on the table most of the time, because I hit it a million times and look. But no, man, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great.
All right. Thank you, guys. God bless you. We'll see you next time.